There is a feeling that many people experience when they wake up, but few know how to name. It is not deep sadness. It is not despair. It is something more subtle. It is opening your eyes and feeling that the day already feels heavy before it even begins. You get up. You grab your phone almost without thinking. Notifications, news, messages, pending problems. Your mind starts in urgency mode. Before you even put your feet on the ground, you are already reacting. You have not breathed calmly. You have not thought clearly. You have not chosen how you want to feel. You have simply entered the noise. And little by little, that constant noise begins to empty something inside you. It is not necessarily that your life is bad. You fulfill your responsibilities. You work. You take care of your loved ones. You keep going. But there is an internal feeling of disconnection. As if you were living on autopilot. The day drags you instead of you directing it. Many times we believe the problem is the number of things we have to do. But in reality, the problem may be how we begin. When the first impulse of the morning is worry, stress, or fear, everything that follows is filtered through that internal state. Emptiness does not appear suddenly. It is built in small daily habits, in mornings without intention, in days that begin without direction. And then an uncomfortable but powerful question arises. What if it is not your life that needs to change, but the order in which you start your day? That is where everything can begin to transform. When you hear the phrase, "Put God first," it may sound abstract, even religious in a rigid sense. But in reality, it goes far beyond a ritual. It is not just about repeating an automatic prayer or fulfilling a tradition. It is about priority. Putting God first means consciously deciding what will be the initial focus of your mind each morning. We all put something first when we wake up. Some people put work first. Others put their worries. Others put fear, the past, or pressure. The brain needs direction, and the first thing you consume at the start of the day sets the emotional tone for what follows. When you decide to put God first, you are choosing to begin from surrender instead of control, from trust instead of anxiety, from awareness instead of impulse. That can look very simple. It can be 5 minutes of silence before touching your phone. It can be a sincere prayer, not a perfect one. It can be giving thanks before asking. It can be reading a verse and reflecting. It can simply be recognizing, I do not want to start this day alone. That small act changes something internally. Because when you begin by acknowledging that you do not control everything, you release part of the weight. When you remember that there is a greater purpose, your perspective adjusts. When you choose to connect before reacting, your mind becomes ordered. It does not mean the problems disappear. It means you do not face them from chaos. Putting God first is not superstition. It is alignment. It is organizing your interior before facing the exterior. It is deciding that your first conversation of the day will not be with fear, but with faith. And when you change the order of what comes first, everything else begins to rearrange. Because the day does not depend only on what happens outside. It depends largely on how you choose to begin inside. The human mind works through focus. What occupies your first thoughts of the day directly influences your emotional state. It is not only spiritual, it is also psychological. The brain interprets the first signals of the morning as instructions. If the first thing you consume is stress, your nervous system activates in alert mode. If the first thing you consume is comparison, your self-esteem begins the day defensively. If the first thing you consume is fear, your mind will search for threats. But when you decide to begin with faith, silence, or reflection, something different happens. Your nervous system regulates. Prayer, gratitude, or meditation do not only have spiritual value, they also generate a physiological effect. They reduce stress activation and increase the sense of stability. When you reduce internal haste upon waking, your brain does not enter survival mode. It enters presence mode. That changes the way you react during the day. You begin to notice that you respond more calmly to situations that used to disturb you, that you do not make impulsive decisions as quickly, that not every comment affects you the same way, not because the world has changed, but because your internal state is different. Focus creates perception. If your first conversation is with God, your mind begins from trust. And when you begin from trust, you interpret challenges as learning opportunities instead of threats. Something deeper also happens. You recover direction. Many people live constantly reacting to what happens around them. But when you begin the day with spiritual intention, you choose the framework from which you will look at reality. You are not denying problems. You are strengthening your capacity to face them. Transformation is not instant or magical. It is progressive. Small accumulated changes, mornings repeated with intention, brief moments of connection that over time shape your mindset. Changing your focus does not immediately change the external world, but it changes how you inhabit it. And when the way you inhabit it changes, your life begins to feel different. When you decide to put God first every morning, you do not always see immediate results. Doors do not magically open. Problems do not disappear overnight. The change begins quietly. And precisely because of that, it is powerful. The first changes are internal. You begin to notice that you react less impulsively, that you breathe before responding, that not everything disturbs you with the same intensity, that new patience is not born from forced effort, but from having begun the day with your heart aligned. Your internal dialogue also changes. Where there were once automatic thoughts of worry, a calmer voice begins to appear. It does not mean you no longer have doubts, but doubts no longer govern your mind. Over time, something more subtle happens. Your perception transforms. Situations you once interpreted as personal attacks are now seen with greater perspective. Problems that seemed enormous begin to feel manageable. Not because they are small, but because you are more stable. Even in the midst of difficulties, you experience a different kind of security. A feeling of not being alone in facing whatever comes. These changes are invisible to many. From the outside, your life may look the same, but inside, the foundation is strengthening. Your character is being shaped. Your faith deepens. Your way of living the day becomes more conscious. And that is where you understand that true transformation is not always loud. Sometimes the greatest change is the one that happens in silence, every morning, before the world wakes up. There comes a moment in this process when the question changes. At the beginning, the motivation is usually clear. If I put God first, my life will change. We expect visible results. More open doors, fewer problems, more immediate clarity, faster answers. But over time, something deeper begins to reveal itself. Perhaps the real change is not that circumstances transform first. Perhaps the real change happens inside you. Because when you begin each morning aligning your heart before your tasks, something rearranges within you. Your priorities change. The way you interpret what happens changes. Your reaction to difficulty changes, and that changes everything. You may still have challenges. Work may not be perfect. There may be conflicts, uncertainty, or moments of doubt. But you no longer face the day from the same emotional fragility. Before, perhaps you needed everything to go well to feel peace. Now you discover that you can have peace even when not everything is under control. That is the true shift. When you put God first, you are not only asking Him to act in your life, you are allowing Him to act in your character, in your patience, in your humility, in your trust. You begin to notice that you no longer need to prove so much, that you no longer react with the same impulsiveness, that your ego loses strength and your serenity gains space. Anxiety decreases not because the future is clear, but because your heart learns to trust. Your relationship with fear also changes. Fear does not disappear completely, but it stops being the protagonist. When you begin the day remembering that you are not walking alone, fear loses authority. You begin to ask yourself less, "What if everything goes wrong?" and more, "What can I learn today?" That difference transforms the way you move forward. There is something else. When your heart changes, your decisions change. And when your decisions change, your life inevitably takes a different direction. Perhaps not in a spectacular way. Perhaps not with grand announcements, but with coherence. You stop acting out of impulse and begin acting out of conviction. You stop living reactively and start living intentionally. Putting God first every morning is not a magic formula. It is a constant practice that shapes your interior. It is a daily act of humility. It is recognizing that you need guidance before facing the world. And in that daily repetition, your heart grows stronger. You become more compassionate, more firm, more stable, more aware of what truly matters. Then you understand something important. Maybe God was not waiting to change your circumstances first. Maybe He was waiting to transform your interior, so that when circumstances change, you are prepared. Because a life transformed from the outside can break again, but a heart transformed from within remains. In the end, the true miracle is not always external. It is internal. It is waking up every morning and choosing to begin from faith instead of fear, from surrender instead of control, from trust instead of despair. And when that choice becomes a habit, your life begins to reflect what has happened inside you. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer the same. If this message has resonated with you, if you felt that something inside you needed to hear this today, I want to invite you to do something simple but powerful. Tomorrow, before looking at your phone, before thinking about your tasks, before letting the noise in, pause, breathe, pray, give thanks, surrender the day, and watch, little by little, how not only your mornings change, but how your heart changes. If you liked this story, if at any moment you felt it resonated with you or touched something in your heart, I would love to read you in the comments. Tell me if you learned something today, or which part of this story feels similar to your own life. And if you want to keep receiving these small reminders that can accompany and support you in your daily life, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for being here, for taking this moment of calm. See you in the next video.